Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides patch rundown video. My name is Christoph and today I'll be going over all the changes that were made in patch 9.24. I'll cover all the details including a tier list for each role that was made by our challenger analysts and partnered pro players. Patch 9.24 is the very last patch of Season 9, and the changes included raised a ton of questions. Will Aphelios be absolutely broken? Are Akali and Ryze being gutted? Will Yuumi become OP again? Don't worry, we got you guys covered and we'll answer all these questions in this video. But remember, since the patch did just hit the live servers, please do keep in mind that our tier lists are purely predictions, guys. We encourage all our viewers to comment on our tier lists and tell us if you agree or disagree with specific champion placements. Also, as a reminder, next week we have an updated tier list, which will give you fresh statistics to give you the best and most accurate tier list available. Also, for our question of the day, what changes would you like to see next year for Season 10? Personally, I would love if Riot gave us the option to turn off Instagram filter dragon map changes during our games. Although the Ocean Rift is really relaxing to look at, some of the other ones like Infernal Rift are really distracting and can make it hard to see specific abilities. Let us know your guys' answers in the comments below. If you guys are interested in getting to the highest division that you possibly can, click the description link below to go to ProGuides.com and go find yourself a challenger coach. They've personally helped me with all of my champions across top lane, jungle, and ADC. Whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching courses from your favorite pro players, ProGuides has it all. So what are you waiting for? Click the link and start improving right now. Now that being said, let's jump right into the video. To kick things off, we have 3 new skin lines and another Hextech skin coming to the Rift for a total of 13 new skins. First up, we have the Sugar Rush skin line, which features Braum, Evelynn, Ziggs, and lastly Zilean. The second new skin line is called the Dawnbringers, and they feature some majestic splash arts. Firstly, we have this beautiful Dawnbringer Nidalee skin, then we have Dawnbringer Karma, and to finish the trio, we have this gorgeous Dawnbringer Soraka skin. Next up is the brand new Hextech skin, which is going to be for Swain. This one is quite pricey, so you'll have to save up a lot for him. And the last skin line coming this patch are the polar opposite of the Dawnbringers, and they are called the Nightbringers. Firstly, we have Nightbringer Lee Sin and Prestige Edition Nightbringer Lee Sin. Then we have this amazing Nightbringer Vladimir, and then a red version of the Dawnbringer Soraka skin, which is called Nightbringer Soraka. And lastly, we have Nightbringer Aphelios. Speaking of Aphelios, he will be released sometime in patch 9.24, and trust me guys, he is a ton of fun. Aphelios is unlike any other champion you've played before, and he's also incredibly difficult to play. But don't worry, if you guys want to start playing Aphelios, then check out our previous guide called The Only Aphelios Guide You'll Ever Need. And if you guys want to master Aphelios, then go to ProGuides.com and get one of our ADC Challenger coaches to help you out. All of them are playing Aphelios right now and are mastering him as we speak. Our challenger analysts spent dozens of hours mastering this champion on the PvE, and they're here to share with you all the important tips and tricks that they've already learned. Also, as a reminder, we don't place new champs or newly reworked champions in our tier lists, so Aphelios will not be in our ADC section. However, we'll make sure to include him in our mid-patch update, so stay alert when we post that next week. Okay, now let's go into some of the balance changes. Starting with the runes and the rift changes. Conqueror received a rework at the start of preseason 10, and it's actually been a little bit stronger than what the balance team had intended. For patch 9.24, Conqueror will receive some nerfs, which are directed at reducing its dominance between all roles, whether you're a ranged or melee champion. First up, the ranged healing on Conqueror at 10 stacks has been nerfed from 15% healing to 8% healing. In addition to this, the stack duration for all Conqueror users has been nerfed from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. These are some pretty big changes for this rune, and it'll significantly nerf the strength of champions like Cassiopeia, Ryze, Swain, and many others. Thank you very much. However, for melee champions, this change will make you a little bit weaker, but the overall strength of this rune remains intact. Next up, we have some massive buffs coming to Omnistone. It's safe to say at this point that this rune has been a complete joke during the preseason. The only time someone actually takes this rune is to troll the other 4 teammates and give the enemy a free win. For patch 9.24, the balance team are aiming to increase the viability of this rune by adding a few biases towards the RNG factor of it. This means that you are more likely to be given the perfect rune choice for whatever scenario that you're in. So let's quickly go over the change list. Firstly, you are now more likely to get Predator when you're not near enemy champions, and less likely to get it when you are in combat with enemy champions. Secondly, you are more likely to get Dark Harvest when you're near low-health enemy champions. And third, Hail of Blades will appear more often when you're near low-health enemy champions and if you've been building attack speed or attack damage. Nextly, Conqueror will appear more often when you and your enemy are high health. This rune also has an increased chance if you are a melee champion. Fifthly, you are more likely to get Fleet Footwork if you are low on health and under level 9. Next, Glacial Augment will appear more often if you have a Glacial active item off cooldown. And finally, you are more likely to get Summonary when you have some sort of healing or shielding power in your kit and you are near a low health ally who's in combat. Overall, these changes should increase the win rate of Omnistone by a ton. The biggest issue with this rune in patch 9.23 was that the runes that you were being given just didn't match the specific scenario. However, now that this rune has some layers of reliability, it might just become enough to make it a legit rune choice. We'll have to just wait and see a little bit what the mid-patch analysis stats have to say about this, so make sure to click that sub button if you want to be notified. Lastly, for the non-champion-based balance changes, we have some buffs coming over to the Rift Herald. Ever since the start of the preseason, Rift Herald has been more of a minor inconvenience rather than an actual objective. It takes a long time to kill, it'll chunk a decent amount of your HP bar, and it only gives you about 2 to 3 plates at best. Its value is nowhere close to the current elemental drakes. This basically led to junglers only playing around the bottom side of the map and leaving top lane completely isolated in the 1v1. For patch 9.24, the Balance team are buffing the Herald to now have 500 more base charge damage. In compensation for this buff, they're also nerfing the charge damage per Herald level just to prevent those one-charge tower kills. That's it for the other changes. Now we have the champion balance changes, starting off with the top lane. Garen received a mini rework a few patches ago, and he still remains a bit too strong despite the nerfs made to his kit recently. For patch 9.24, Garen will receive another nerf, which directly will target his overall damage. Firstly, his E Judgment will have its spin tick rate change from 7+1 per 25% of your attack speed to 7+1 per 20% of your attack speed. In addition to this, the damage per level on Judgment has also been lowered from 8.2 down to 6.6. These two nerfs are pretty big, and also, you gotta take into account that Conqueror has been nerfed as well. For patch 9.24, Garen will be dropped from the S+ tier down to the S tier. The top lane tier list sees a lot of changes compared to the one we had in our previous patch. Sitting all by himself in the S+ tier throne is King Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser has been a very powerful champion during the preseason, and he'll continue to dominate the top lane meta through his powerful damage, high sustain, great 1v1 potential, and low skill cap. Although Conqueror did receive a nerf, it'll only affect him slightly since he is a melee champion. In the S tier, we have Darius, Garen, Fiora, Kled, Vladimir, and Ornn. These 6 champions shouldn't come as a surprise to you because they've been in the S tier for multiple patches now and are great picks for patch 9.24. Our analysts highly recommend you try out Ornn and Darius because they are incredibly strong right now. In fact, Darius almost rivals Mordekaiser in terms of win rate and pick rate, but doubles him in terms of ban rate, which goes to show how scary he can be. Ornn, on the other hand, has been more of a sleeper OP pick, one of the highest top lane win rates in the game. The pure value that he provides for his team when it comes to free stats is super underrated, and you should look to add him to your champion pool. A lot of the ranged top laners who use Conqueror like Kayle, Heimerdinger, Urgot, and many others have been dropped by about 1 tier due to the nerfs Conqueror received this patch. The healing and duration nerf was pretty big, and our analysts are predicting that their win rates will decrease this patch. Ryze has been dropped from the S tier this patch due to some nerfs made to his kit. We'll make sure to go over these as well as some Akali nerfs that are coming up in the mid lane section, so make sure to stay tuned. Lastly, for the top lane, we have a new addition to the tier list, which is going to be Nocturne. Nocturne top is super strong right now and is one of the most underrated picks in the game. Sanguine Blade makes him borderline OP, and he's becoming a lot more popular in Korean solo queue. Next time you queue up for top lane, give him a try because he's a ton of fun and can net you some free LP. Okay, now on to the jungle. Amumu has been struggling in the current jungle meta for quite a while, and it looks like he's finally receiving some love in patch 9.24. His Q, Bandage Toss, will have its cooldown reduced from 12 to 8 seconds to 10 to 8 seconds. Having those 2 seconds on his max cooldown shaved off is going to help him out a ton. Not only will it help in those small skirmishes and teamfights, but it'll also help him get over walls more efficiently when clearing camps. However, this buff won't really do much for his stance in the meta, and Amumu will remain in the jungle B tier. Rammus has been doing really poorly in the jungle recently and was in dire need of some buffs. He's been receiving a ton of indirect nerfs over the course of the previous season, and his win rate pretty much fell off a cliff. For patch 9.24, Rammus will receive a few small buffs to his E cooldown and HP gain per level. These 2 buffs are going to do wonders for him, and Rammus will be moved up to the jungle A tier. The jungle tier list sees a ton of changes compared to the one we had in the previous patch. Starting with the S+ tier, we have 3 members who are Olaf, Echo, and Warwick. Olaf is currently one of the strongest junglers in the game thanks to the new Conqueror, combined with the jungle changes. Not only can he clear camps with lightning speed, but he can also solo objectives very quickly, and even 1v1 the enemy jungler. If you're looking for a very powerful yet straightforward jungler in patch 9.24, then we highly recommend you try Olaf. It's no surprise to see Echo be placed in the S+ tier once again. His numbers are currently way overtuned, and he will need to receive some nerfs in the future. Warwick, on the other hand, skyrocketed his win rate to the near 56% mark thanks to the changes made to jungling this patch. He excels at clearing camps while also soloing objectives while taking little to no damage. However, it is important to note that Warwick does become a lot weaker if the enemy jungler locks in Olaf, so make sure to ban him or Nunu during your rank games. In the S tier, we have 8 champions who are Shaco, Kha'Zix, Elise, Lee Sin, Nocturne, J4, Nunu, and Kayn. These 8 champions have been in our S tier for multiple patches now, so none of them should come as a surprise. If you're new to jungling, then our analysts recommend you try out Nunu, J4, and Nocturne because they will be the easiest to play. If you're more of an experienced jungler, then you should go for Lee Sin, Elise, and Shaco because they're really fun and very powerful at the same time. That's it for the jungle. Now, let's run it down mid. First up in the mid lane, we have changes coming to Akali. And no, they are not buffs. Akali has been one of the most unbalanceable champions in the game ever since her rework, and she's receiving another set of changes in patch 9.24. Oof, poor girl. Firstly, her Q, 5-point strike, will have its hitbox reduced to only shoot in front of her instead of slightly behind her. In addition to that, the rank 5 bonus damage that her Q receives will be nerfed from 133% to 125%. Although both these nerfs seem pretty small on paper, they're actually a lot bigger than they seem. The Q nerfs are directed at decreasing her wave clear and making it harder for Akali to gain lane priority and roam around the map. This means that bad roams will be punished a lot harder, and she will have less opportunities to gank other lanes. Akali will be dropped to the mid lane B tier for patch 9.24. Kassadin has been holding an incredible win rate during this fast-paced meta despite being a very weak early game champion. This is mostly due to the multiple buffs he received in the past few months, combined with the changes to runes like Conqueror and Presence of Mind. For patch 9.24, Kassadin will receive a bit of tuning on his Q and W. Firstly, his Q will have its cooldown nerfed from 9 seconds to 11 to 9 seconds. Next up, his W will have its mana restore rate decreased from 4 to 8% to 4 to 6%. Both these nerfs are really big, and they'll definitely lower his win rate by a decent amount. On top of that, Conqueror also received a nerf which will help bring Kassadin down a notch. Kassadin will be placed in the S tier, which is an overall drop because his stats from the last bit of patch 9.23 would have placed him in the S+ tier. Lux is receiving a VFX update this patch, so keep a close eye out for that. The design team have improved clarity on her abilities, so it should be a lot easier to dodge them. Diana is receiving a rework for patch 9.24. The overall goal of this rework is to preserve what people loved about her while also giving her more tools to compete against the newer champions. Firstly, she will see a few base stat buffs to her mana growth, and attack damage. Next up, her passive Moonsilver Blade will now give her 10 to 40% attack speed, depending on level, instead of 30 to 90%. In addition to this, Moonsilver Blade will no longer restore back mana, but it'll still cleave nearby enemies for 20 to 250, with 40% AP scaling on every third strike. Her Q, Crescent Strike, will have a simple change, and the mana cost will be lowered by 5. Next up, her W Pale Cascade will have its cooldown increased from 10 seconds at all ranks to 15 to 9. In addition to this, the base shielding amount and orb damage ratio has been nerfed by a small amount. However, the shield strength itself will now have a 0.1 bonus health ratio to further strengthen its shield. Then her old E will now be replaced with her current ultimate, Lunar Rush. Lunar Rush will have a 22 to 14 second cooldown, it'll cost 40 to 60 mana, and deal 40 to 120 damage with a 40% scaling. Lastly, her ultimate Moonfall will work similarly to her old E, and it'll have a 100 to 80 second cooldown, cost 100 mana flat, and it'll slow enemies for 40 to 60%. In addition to this, if Diana pulls in one or more enemy champions, the Moonlight crashes down onto her after 1 second, dealing 200 to 400 damage with 60% AP scaling in an area around her. She will also deal an increased 30 to 85 damage with 15% scaling per each target hit beyond the first pulled. These Diana changes actually are pretty amazing, and I'm really excited to try her out this patch, but just remember, since she just received a new rework, she will not be placed in our tier list for patch 9.24, but we'll place her in our mid-patch update video next week, so make sure to sub if you want to see that. Lastly, for the mid lane, we have a nerf coming to Ryze. Ryze is one of the most broken champions in the game right now, and was long overdue for a nerf. For patch 9.24, his Q will have its damage lowered from 80 to 180 to 65 to 165. Although 15 damage on a spammable ability seems like a lot, it actually won't impact his stance in the meta by too much. He'll still be a very solid pick in the mid lane thanks to his E and low skill cap. Our analysts do, though, expect his win rate to drop, and Ryze will be placed in the mid lane A tier. However, we'll have to keep a close eye on this one and update you guys once his fresh stats come in, so make sure to stay alert for that. The mid lane tier list sees a lot of changes compared to the one we had during patch 9.23. In the S+ tier, sitting all by himself is going to be Little Fizz. Fizz is one of the strongest solo queue mid laners in the game right now, and you should definitely add him to your champion pool. Once you hit level 6, it's pretty much a free kill as long as you can land your Shark, and the majority of mid lane champions can't really do much once they've been hit. In the S tier, we have Cassiopeia, Kassadin, Katarina, Echo, Ahri, Malzahar, Talon, Vladimir, and Nocturne. For the first time in history, our S tier looks very different than what it was in the previous patch. Cassiopeia and Kassadin would be placed in the S+ tier if it wasn't for those Conqueror nerfs combined with the direct nerfs made to Kassadin this patch. These two champions are still very powerful, and you should continue to play them for some free LP. Nocturne has been doing very well in the mid lane as well recently, mostly thanks to Sanguine Blade. Once he has this item, he feels almost impossible to beat in lane. The pure value of Sanguine Blade might cause some problems in competitive play, which will probably result in a nerf, so make sure to abuse this item as much as you can before it goes down the gutter. Zed has finally been dropped in the A tier mainly due to the changes for lethality items. Serrated Dirk having its passive removed combined with Duskblade being nerfed significantly has made Zed a lot weaker than he was last season. In addition to that, champs like Cassiopeia, Fizz, Echo, and Malzahar can all dumpster Zed during the laning phase if they play it out well. Also, Azir and Corki were about to receive some buffs this patch, but they have been cancelled due to the balance team wanting to see how the Conqueror nerfs impact them first. However, be prepared to face off against them next patch because they'll be buffed during that time. Okay, now on to the ADCs. Sivir is going to be the only ADC balance change that we see this patch, and the buff is very simple. Her base AD will be increased from 61 to 63. This is a very small buff, but her win rate will increase overall. Sivir will be placed in the B tier this patch, but we'll see if she can make her way to the A tier for a mid-patch update. The ADC tier list sees a few changes in our patch 9.24 video. In the S+ tier, we have 3 champions who are Caitlyn, Ashe, and Miss Fortune. Ashe has always been a solid pick in solo queue thanks to the nature of the champion. Her damage, utility, engage potential, and poke make her extremely valuable on the Rift, and she's always a great ADC to have on your team. Caitlyn has also been doing incredibly well thanks to a few new builds on her from the Korean server. If you want to be updated on these builds, then click that sub button to be notified of our OP Korean builds video for patch 9.24 later this week. Lastly, Miss Fortune has also been doing really well this patch thanks to the 4 Doran's Blade Rush item path. This path makes her so tanky while also having a ton of damage and lifesteal. She's essentially an ADC tank that does a crap ton of damage. Also, as a reminder, we did not place Aphelios in the list because he's a new champion, and we follow a general rule of not placing any new champs in our tier lists. However, we will make sure to give you an accurate read of his stance in the meta in our mid-patch analysis update video. In our S tier, we have 6 champions who are Jhin, Vayne, Jinx, Kai'Sa, Lucian, and Senna. Senna has been dropped from the S Plus tier down to the S tier due to some massive nerfs she is receiving this patch. We'll go over these in our support section, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Jhin has been moved up to the S tier thanks to the latest changes made to Stormrazor. Having that crit added onto this item has made playing Jhin feel so much better. His item path actually makes sense, and he doesn't have to build Infinity first. In addition to this, the new Edge of Night is really good on Jhin as well for peeling, so make sure to try that out in your build. Lastly, for ADCs, Cassiopeia and Ezreal will be suffering quite a bit this patch due to the nerfs made to Conqueror. Ezreal has already been struggling due to the removal of Kleptomancy, but this nerf is going to hurt him even more. Sorry, Dan. Alright, that's it for ADCs. Finally, on to supports. First up for supports, we have a mini rework coming to Yuumi. These changes are created around balancing her between regular play while also making her less dominant in high elo and professional matches. Firstly, her passive Bop and Block will have its shield value increase from 50 to 300 to 50 to 390. In addition to this, the passive now restores 50 to 160 mana once you proc it. Next up, her Q, Prowling Projectile, will have its mana cost increased by 10, followed by an AP damage ratio nerf by 15%. In addition to this, the empowered damage on this ability will have its base damage buffed, but the scaling nerfed and the missile duration will be reduced by 1 second. Her W, You and Me, will now have a 0.25 second channel time when attaching from an unattached state. Yuumi also no longer follows the summoner spell Teleport, and immobilizing her places this spell on a 5-second cooldown. The adaptive bonus that this ability grants also has been buffed by a huge amount to now grant way more percentage and base stats. Lastly, her E, Zoomies, will have its cooldown buffed from 18 to 14 seconds to 12 to 8 seconds. In addition to this, the mana cost has been increased from 30 to 70 to 100 to 160, but the healing has been buffed by a gigantic amount. The movement speed on Zoomies has been nerfed by 10%, but it'll be reworked to no longer decay. In addition to that, Zoomies will no longer hold charges but will grant 25 to 45% attack speed over 2 seconds. Overall, most of these changes are direct nerfs to Yuumi, but huge buffs towards the host. This means that Yuumi will have less impact on the outcome of the game, but she will be able to enable her host ADC to become even more powerful and carry a lot harder. I'm not really sure how I feel about these changes, but I am glad that they are adding a bit more counterplay towards her W. Let us know your thoughts on these changes down below, and remember guys, Yuumi will not be placed in our tier list this patch because our analysts follow a general rule where we do not place newly reworked champions in our tier lists, just like new champions as well. Braum has been struggling in the meta for quite some time and is finally receiving a ton of love in patch 9.24. Firstly, his base HP per level has been increased from 87 to 98, and his HP regen has been increased by 0.5. His W, Stand Behind Me, will have its cooldown lowered from 14 to 10 seconds to 12 to 8 seconds, and the mana cost will be changed to 40 flat. The armor and MR that this ability grants to the ally has been nerfed by 4%, and the armor and MR granted to Braum has been buffed by a huge 20%. Lastly, his ultimate Glacial Fissure will have its damage increased from 150 to 350 to 150 to 450, and the first target hit by this ability will now be knocked up for 1 to 1.5 seconds rather than 0.25 seconds for all. These are some amazing changes for Braum, and I cannot wait until they hit the live servers. I'm actually a really big Braum fan, and he's my go-to support when I get autofilled. I love these changes. Keep it up, Riot. Braum will be placed in the support A tier, but we'll see if he can get into the S tier in the mid-patch update. Karma has been receiving a lot of nerfs recently, but it looks like she'll be receiving a buff in patch 9.24. Karma's E shield strength has been buffed from 70 to 170 to 80 to 200. This is a pretty small buff for her, but it helps nonetheless. Karma will remain in our support B tier for this patch. Lastly, for supports, we have some changes coming to Senna. Senna has been a bit too strong since her release, and she definitely deserves a few nerfs. Firstly, her health growth per level has been nerfed from 85 to 75. Next up, her passive Absolution will have its soul drop rate on minions killed lowered from 5.55% to 1.67%. In addition to that, clones will no longer drop souls, and allied bards can no longer kill souls with his Q. Next up, her Q, Piercing Darkness, will have its damage lowered from 50 to 170 with 50% AD scaling to 40 to 160 with 40% AD scaling. Then her W, Last Embrace, will have its root duration changed from 1.45 to 2.245 seconds to 1.25 to 2.25 seconds. And lastly, her ultimate, Dawning Shadow, will have its AP ratio on its damage and shield nerfed by 10% on each part. These changes are a huge nerf towards her kit, but she will still be relatively powerful and will be dropped into the S tier for patch 9.24. The support tier list sees a few changes compared to the one we had previously. In the S Plus tier, we have 3 champions who are Nautilus, Leona, and Blitzcrank. These 3 champions will bring you the best results in ranked games, so make sure to keep playing them whenever you can. In the S tier, we have Senna, Morgana, Thresh, Shaco, Janna, and Swain. This is a quite unusual S tier roster, but our analysts are confident in their picks with Shaco and Swain. These 2 champions don't see a whole lot of play in Western regions, but they are very powerful and popular in the Eastern ones like Korea and China. If you're looking for a solid counterpick to 90% of the supports in the meta, then we recommend you try Morgana. Her Black Shield can single-handedly destroy the S Plus roster with just that one button. That's it for our patch 9.24 rundown video. If you guys enjoyed watching this video, then please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel to be notified of the next one. And if you guys want to master any of the champions on this tier list, then make sure to check out ProGuides.com, where you can firstly watch some great content on the champion, and then secondly, go get yourself a challenger coach to help you master them. As a reminder, the second part of our meta-analysis video will be available next week, which will give you guys the most accurate tier list available. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in your next few games, and we'll see you on the Rift.